individual hearts, illuminating and radiating out into the world. Share the wealth of understanding life from a deep spiritual perspective. And since we're going to do a lot of other things, but right now in our world, there might be a lot of financial uncertainty. I know that there are in many of the different, I want to say banking, but different realms of this human condition that we're in. So our focus then each week will be to look at abundance from a deeply spiritual perspective. And I know that there are a few people that might be new to religious science here today, yes? A few people?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're looking for you because I got some stuff to tell you. So this is a religious science community, and we teach science of mind principles. And we fall under the umbrella of New Thought. You might have heard New Thought, which is, it includes unity and many other different kinds of spirituality that teach the oneness, which is what we teach. We are founded in the mid-1900s by Dr. Ernest Holmes, actually the early 1900s. And this spirituality, science, philosophy, and religion can be any of those. In fact, it's all of those, but some people aren't comfortable with the word religion, so they can say science or spirituality because it's all of those things. And it's based on the teachings that have gone on forever. From the beginning of time, these teachings have gone on. So in a nutshell, we are expressing the Eastern philosophies and the Western. They're combined. So we just embrace it all. As long as it's in the flow of that divine love that Stephen was singing about. Because by doing this, it helps us create a personal, intimate relationship with God. Our own personal, intimate relationship with the God of our being. Not a God that's up here and I'm down here judging. It's a God of our being, a loving energy. And it helps us take full and complete responsibility for our lives because we realize through this teaching that we are the powerful beings that create our lives. So we can't, that's the part of it, it's that responsibility part of this teaching. We create what's in our lives, like it or not. I tried to escape that one. I had lots of stories about how it was everyone else. I'll tell you, no matter how many times I kept doing that, the patterns kept appearing in my life, so I just went back to, well, it is me. So the minute I started changing the way I saw things and the way I responded to things, then the things themselves changed. Whoa. So that's part of it. Also, it helps us to live a life of balance, of harmony, joy, love, and peace. And also to be a beneficial presence on this earth. Now, I didn't know what it meant to be a beneficial presence 20 years ago when I kept saying, well, God, I'm a beneficial presence. It just felt right. I had no clue what a beneficial presence really was, but I'm telling you that this law, this substance, this divine energy responds to what we put into it. So I'm putting into it, right? I'm a beneficial presence, and then things would unfold. And I would show up then as a beneficial presence. So each and every one of you can choose that too, because you really are a beneficial presence. You really are. And I love these words of our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. This is in his Science of Mind book. He writes, "The philosophy of religious science is nothing new to the world. It is rather a synthesis of the greatest concepts that have ever come to mind of humankind. The laws of Moses, the love of Christ, the ethics of Buddha, the morals of Confucius, and the deep spiritual realization of the Hindus. All are exalted," he writes, "are in an exalted place in this philosophy of religious science." That's what we are. It's an acceptance. There's no dogma. So don't think that you're going to get like all kinds of rules and regulations, because there aren't any. Except it would serve you to love yourself. That's about, and it's not a dogma. It's your choice. It's all choice. It's all choice. So with that overview of what this is, let's get to our topic at hand. And it is written in the scripture that Jesus said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy man to get into heaven. And one more thought to just explain about what we feel that Jesus is. Jesus in Science of Mind is the ultimate supreme way shower, a great, great master teacher, but not the supreme exception. Set the tone for us to see that we can do these things or more. He said it. He said it. It's in the Bible. If you really study the Bibles, and there's so many of them, as we found out from Dale Allen Hoffman, and there's a whole bunch of Bibles, so whichever one you choose. But really, what did he do? He taught how to love one another. He taught to heal by just seeing the light of God and being the light of God. That's how he healed. He didn't do anything magical. He just knew the truth. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke all cited Jesus as making this proclamation, the one that I just read, about the eye of the needle. And it is in the context, it was said in the context of a rich young man who asked Jesus what he had to do to follow him. Now this is written also in the Bibles. This is like before and after that eye of the needle one, but you don't hear this for a reason. So Jesus told him, among other things, that he had to sell all of his possessions. And all three of those Gospels, say that the young man walked away depressed because he had great wealth and he really didn't want to give it up. He didn't want to give it up. So, since this appears in all three Gospels, I'd love to point this expansive portrait that Mark in his Bible painted a really beautiful portrait. This is what he wrote. And it precedes and follows that famous quote that we just heard. He wrote, when Jesus' surprised disciples asked why he had told the young man that he had to sell all of his possessions, all of his stuff in order to follow them, he replied before saying the famous quote, he said, "My sons, how hard it is for those who trust in their wealth to enter into the kingdom of God." So in other words, what he meant, because he spoke in parables, paradoxes and parables. So in other words, it's pretty darn hard for those who look to their wealth as their God to try to find, because we believe that heaven is within. So to try to find their security and happiness in just the wealth itself. To have a deep connection with the creator of all good and to live in the flow and harmony with it. That's what he was teaching. That's what he was teaching. So those who look to their wealth as their God will never really feel the kingdom of heaven. That's what he was talking about. It puts a little different spin on it. So, a few verses after the famous saying, Jesus said this, "Truly I say to you, there is no man who leaves houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake and for the sake of my gospel, who shall not receive now in this time 100-fold houses, brothers, sisters, maidservants, and children and fields and other worldly things. 100-fold. And in the world to come, life everlasting." He wrote that. So because, as I said, Jesus often spoke in metaphors, parables, it seemed logical that he would have been speaking metaphorically here as well. So we're going to take it apart. I mean, really, I wish Dale Allen Hoffman lived closer because I'd have him do the Metaphysical Bible. He speaks fluent Aramaic, of those of you who were part of the workshop. So his interpretation of all these Bibles was pretty phenomenal. So anyway, I don't believe he literally meant to leave all of your possessions, to leave them all. Because in the next breath he's saying, they will be multiplied 100-fold. So here's another perfect way of that parable, that quote. No. also said, seek ye first the kingdom, and all else will be added. Just take him at him. Seek ye first this higher power, this divine energy, this God being first, and all else. We got it backwards. We'd be seeking outside thinking this is going to bring us heaven. And it doesn't. And that's what he meant by that. That wealth that we have will come naturally. It is a good thing. Not against wealth. We like wealth. We love wealth. Wealth is good. But first, we got to do the work internally, within ourselves. Make a peace, make in harmony. The abundance is already present within each of us. So God is our source. So listen to this expansive interpretation then of Jesus' words. Taking into account what he said right before and after, which I just explained. So listen to this with the eye of the needle. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a man who looks to his wealth as God to find in it his security and happiness. But when he looks to God first, he will find his wealth expanded 100-fold. That sounds really good. Don't you think that sounds good? Sounds better than the other one, because the other one is based on poverty consciousness. And it was written to keep us in, or interpreted to keep us in, or changed to keep us in poverty consciousness. And Science of Mind is telling you, you deserve all the good that this universe has and more. You deserve all the wealth, all the good. And you can create it if you believe it. And these teachings keep us down. This religious science empowers us. That's the whole point of it. It empowers us. So I have a rhetorical question. If anyone felt a little adverse reaction to hearing it, we're talking in church not about abundance and prosperity, but about wealth. People might think, this is not the place. I mean, you people that have been here all the time, you're used to it. But creating wealth might feel a little off on that because we're supposed to be in that poverty consciousness. But then we have to start doing a little work on ourselves and getting off that camel. So get off the camel, because you deserve all the good that the universe has to offer, and the universe is God. So what is wealth really? What is it? A really good definition is in this book, The Revealing Word, which I'm going to order Jeannie for our book table. I'm going to get this, because it's the metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, and it's a dictionary. So it gives you really great definitions of these parables that are very hard to understand. So this is what it says in that book. True wealth is a state of consciousness, the consciousness of God as our supply. Spiritual wealth itself expresses as faith, love, wisdom, substance, joy, and so on. And so our exploration will be about living in that state of consciousness. And what is consciousness? Consciousness is our thoughts, our feelings, our values, our actions, our words, is all of who we are. That is our consciousness. You hear us talk about consciousness. That's what it is. It's all of those things combined. And so I decided to look through some of the books on my bookshelf, and I pulled out four that are really, I thought were really good. There's so many of them. The first one was Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth. Actually, that's the book that Veronica Parker uses in her class. It's based on that book. Prosperity by Charles Fillmore, one of the founders of Unity. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. His famous book is Think and Grow Rich. One of the greatest books, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. So today I want to look at just one concept. We're going to do more because this is part one. So this is so rich that we have to have it in two parts. So part two will be next week. So part one is today we're going to explore the truth about substance. And that's the title of Eric Butterworth's first chapter in Spiritual Economics. We talk about substance, and I'm going to get into that now because we talk about it all the time, and it's the law, it's the thing that we impress It's like, you know, the secret, the law of attraction, the class I am going to be teaching. It's about what we put into this substance is what we get back. It's neutral, non-judgmental, so that's how our thoughts create. That's how we're powerful beings. It's a wonderful, the whole creative process is really it's incredible when you understand how to use it. So, this is he's quoting Emily Cady in the first chapter of his book, and she writes, God is not a being with qualities or attributes, but God is the good itself coming into expression as life, love, power, and wisdom. What she is saying then is that God is not loving. God is the allness of love. God is not wise. God is the essence of wisdom. God is not a dispenser of divine substance. God is the ever-present substance. That is what we call God, or divine energy, or infinite, whatever you want to call spirit. You can give it any name you want. So it's important, my friends, really important, is the subtle but really vital. It's a vital key to understand in this whole entire structure of spiritual wealth. It rests on on the understanding that we move into realizing that this substance responds to us, and it's where we all live, move, breathe, and have our being. Whether we do it by default or consciously, much better to do it consciously. Much better to do it consciously. So I want to say again, God is not a dispenser of divine substance. God is the ever-present substance in which we all live, move, breathe, and have our being in. The whole of God, the entirety of God, is present at every given point of space at the same time. Remember, it's omnipresent. There is no place that this energy is not. And all of it is present completely at the same time. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. God is the presence, totally, fully, completely. And you may be praying for a healing. But the truth is the wholeness of God is present in, around, and through you right now. You may be praying for greater love. But the whole of God as love is present in, around, and through you right now. And you may be praying for a greater abundance. But the whole of God as substance is right where you are, right here, right now, moving through you, right now. But we must recognize it. We must come to that realization. Sometimes it's a stretch to think about when we're in the middle of some of our human conditions. It doesn't feel like God is love right here, right now. But it's that faith and that belief that is transforming our understanding of what our real relationship is with the God of our knowing. What is the God of your knowing? Because if it's a punishing, dualistic kind of God, then that's what you're going to suffer a lot in life. You're going to suffer a lot in life because you're believing that God judges you. And that's why I love Science of Mind, because it's a loving God that just loves. Just loves. Is there a point on earth, anywhere on earth, where gravity is more or less? Where electricity is more or less? These are all invisible, unseen laws of this substance that we're talking about. And they work the same wherever they are. It's not more gravity over here, more electricity over here. It's like these laws are invisible, but they're always working. They're always working. Let's skip right over that. Too long. Okay, we'll go to the shorter quote. This one is by Charles Fillmore in Prosperity. He writes, "The spiritual substance from which comes all visible wealth is never depleted. It is right with you all the time and responds to your faith in it and your demands of it. It is not affected by our ignorant talk of hard times, though we are affected because our thoughts and words govern our demonstrations," he writes. pour your living words of faith into the omnipresent substance, and you will be prospered even though all the banks in the world have closed their doors. These are all writers that have been writing this the same thing, since really, Socrates, since the beginning of time, way before, since the beginning of time. They all said the same truth. So this month, I am going to invite you to make a deeply rooted commitment that you can practice and will practice if you choose. The presence of this God substance. God as my source. That's what I go to all the time. If I'm feeling a little unhinged, sometimes, stuff appears. And it's like, wait a minute. Let me breathe first. God is the source and supply of all my good. God is my government, or my CEO is what I like to say of my life. God is the CEO of my life. So that's really turning it over. That really is turning it over to a higher power. And calling forth that higher power, because if the substance is responding to what you're thinking and speaking, then if you're thinking and speaking that God is my source and supply, guess what? A greater consciousness of abundance and wealth becomes your experience, your reality. So remember that there are many different channels through which this wealth can come to us, but there is only one source, and that is the divine source, that is God. And so I invite you to use this week to practice that and see what happens. Next week is part 2. And so it is.
And so it is.